Welcome back, y'all. This is the Bluechip Breakdown, and I'm your host, Bull. Today, I'm going to be making my case for why the SEC is a much stronger conference than the Big Ten, and by default, better than every other conference in all of college football. Now, I just want to say this first and foremost, as y'all can see, I am a Tennessee fan. I'm not one of these SEC homers or any of that type of stuff. I just call things like I see them, and I am a little bit upset that my Tennessee Volunteers don't have a better seating inside of the college football playoffs. Because if you look at this thing from top to bottom, and I will be giving y'all nothing but facts, but if you look at this thing from top to bottom, you can see why the SEC deserves to have more teams in, and we do deserve to have higher playoff seedings because this thing is not even, right? The SEC is playing a completely different sport than everybody else's, and that does include the Big Ten. But before we get into it, please do us a very big favor. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. All right, y'all, let's start off looking at the strength of schedules, and I did get this from ESPN.com. These are the FPI rankings. I love looking at this right here. You will see the strength of schedule. I've already got everything in order for you, but with the Big Ten, there are two teams that have a top 10 strength of schedule in the entire country. They have 6 teams that have a top 20 ranked strength of schedule in the entire country, and then they have 11 teams that have a top 30 ranked strength of schedule. So let's come all the way down to the bottom, right? Let's take a look at Oregon. Their strength of schedule is currently sitting at number 52. They are the number 1 ranked team in the entire country. Their only real win, as far as I'm concerned, is versus Ohio State, who currently has the 25th ranked strength of schedule. Now, all this stuff might look good to you just off of the rip, but let's take a look at the SEC and see how the Big Ten measures up. Now, we can see that the SEC has 7 teams with a top 10 strength of schedule nationally, and there are 11 teams with the top 20 strength of schedule, and there's a total of 14 teams with the top 30 ranked strength of schedule in this entire country. So let's just say, for example, what if we put Ohio State into the SEC? How would their strength of schedule measure up? Because it's currently 25th. Well, they would be sitting at the 14th ranked strength of schedule in the SEC. It's completely and totally different. And just for a point of reference, they were sitting at number 8 inside of the Big Ten, just as far as the strength of schedule goes. But the weakest strength of schedule inside of the SEC is 36, and that's Texas. Now, how they got such a weak strength of schedule, we can speculate on that all day long, but I will bring y'all right on back to the Big Ten so that y'all can see just how many strength of schedules they have that is ranked lower than Texas. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 strength of schedules inside of the Big Ten that is worse than the worst inside of the SEC. For me, okay, like I could just end the whole thing right here, right now. There's absolutely no reason that you look at these teams, schedules side by side, look at the wins and losses from the Big Ten to the SEC and say, okay, we can just measure things up. If you're undefeated or if you've only lost 1 game inside of the Big Ten, that's just the same as, only losing, 1 or not losing any inside of the SEC. You cannot just look at the record and think that this stuff is going to be even. Now let's take a look at the all-time record with the SEC versus the Big Ten. Again, this is all-time. This is not some recency bias or any of that. This is since these programs started playing one another from these conferences. The SEC currently leads 111 to 73-2, which is good for a 60% win rate. It gets even better with the bowl games. The SEC is winning 69 to 37, which is good for a 65% win rate. That should tell you a lot right there. But let's keep on going. What about national titles? This is since 2000. The SEC has 14 to the Big Ten's 3. I don't have to, add that up or spell that out for you. That's very obvious how those numbers look. Now let's talk about first-round draft picks, okay? The SEC currently has 209 first-round draft picks since the year 2000. The Big Ten has 129. And I put everybody else up here just to show you how different this sport is with the level of competition. There is a huge difference from a first-round draft pick to any other draft pick. The first rounders are surefire things. They're sure bets, all that good stuff. The SEC has significantly more than everyone else. Now, let's keep on going because there's several things. I mean, we could do this literally all day. This right here is going to be about the blue chip players, with each team. I do have that ranked in order from greatest to least, and also have it separated from the SEC to the Big Ten. Now, this is all about 4- and 5-star caliber players. If you don't know what that means, those are just the highest rated players coming out of high school. Having those types of players that, again, are almost like, sure things to go on and, maybe be first-round draft picks or higher draft picks. These are the guys that are almost can't miss. It just shows the amount of talent that each team has. And I did get this from 24/7 Sports. Okay, now I will link that down below. But anyway, starting off with the SEC, we see that UGA has 69, Ohio State has 69. So things are even there. But come on down to number 2. Alabama has 67. Oregon only has 56, and Oregon would be the second team inside of the Big Ten. So we're already starting to see how much of a difference there is with the level of talent. But really, if you come down to number 5, Florida has 52 blue chip caliber players, and at number 5 for the Big Ten, USC only has 40. At number 6, things really start to open up because LSU has 51 blue chip caliber players, and Wisconsin only has 28. We could even come all the way down to the very, very bottom of the SEC with Vandy. They have 12 blue chip caliber players. And then over here at 14, Minnesota has 12 blue chip caliber players. But there are 4 more teams, okay, including Indiana, that has less talent on their roster than Vanderbilt does. And Vandy, they're playing very well this season. I hope that they continue to do that. Obviously, my brother did go there. My whole point here is just to say that they are really considered to be like the bottom of the bottom inside of the SEC. So the SEC only has 16 teams, and then the Big Ten does have 18. So I'll say that there's a lot more concentrated talent inside of the SEC, which is why the strength of schedules are so high, because we have, more talent coming in out of high school. We are developing them enough to get to the NFL, not just to get to the NFL, but also to be first rounders. And it's just a better overall conference from top to bottom. It's really not even close. You've got a team like Indiana that is going to make, I think, the playoffs this season, but they would probably lose to Vanderbilt. And if you doubt that, again, just look at the blue chip ratio. Watch these teams play. You could even look at the way that Indiana barely beat Michigan, and all this stuff isn't going to be transitive, but Indiana barely beat Michigan. But Texas played Michigan and they killed them. They also played Vandy and they barely won. I think they only won by like a score or, maybe like a score or 2. It is different. Okay. There is a lot more competition inside of the SEC. So I'm saying all these things just to say that I do believe, honestly speaking, if this was done fair, the SEC would have in, at least 5 teams this season, because things can change from season to season. And you could probably even make the case for 6 or 7 teams from the SEC. Yeah, there's a whole lot from one conference, but the real problem is not about, oh, hey, all the good teams are inside of one conference. The real problem is about why aren't more teams playing, better competition? We need to spread this talent out a lot more. So for me, I would say either do away with the voting thing, which to me, this hasn't ever worked, and go back to some sort of, like BCS model or something like that. Or maybe we just go to like a 32-team NFL model and do away with all these programs that we honestly know have no realistic shot to ever compete with these teams in the SEC in the upper echelon of the Big Ten. And, again, some of the guys from the ACC and, maybe 1 or 2 from the Big 12, but it's all about the resources. We're not playing even football, okay? This is not an even playing field by any means. So you can't say on one side, hey, look, we can't punish this team for having a weak schedule and then punish a team for having a strong schedule. That is just, to me, that's ass backwards. That makes absolutely no sense. We've got to stop, giving teams so much credit and rewarding teams for having these weaker schedules when there are teams in the SEC that are going through an absolute and total gauntlet. So that's my biggest point. And honestly, as a Tennessee fan, I think that we should be seated a lot higher than we are currently, but everything will end up playing itself out in the playoffs. Whenever Indiana, gets matched up versus one of these SEC teams, they're going to get absolutely killed. And I think that the same thing could probably be said about maybe every single one of these other Big Ten teams, because they are not ready to face up against this level of competition. Last thing that I will say is it's a different level of football, even with the way that the game is played. The Big Ten is so boring to watch because they've got to stick to that ground and pound 3 yards in a cloud of dust because their climate is different, right? Like in cold climate conditions, you can't throw the football around as much. You've got to stick to that run game. But down here in the South, inside of the SEC, we're not dealing with such extremely cold temperatures. So we can run a lot more, NFL styles of offenses that are more fun to watch. They can not just run the football, but also throw it down the field and open things up. I mean, even Oregon has become very boring to watch. But those are my thoughts. Please share yours with me down in the comments section. Is the SEC really better than the Big Ten, or is the Big Ten better than the SEC? And make sure that you come with some facts if you're going to challenge what we said today, because I will bring even more facts to you, because this is just a very small tip of the iceberg. But y'all, please do us a very big favor. Before you go, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.